In townships all across South Africa, you'll find them on pretty much every corner. Spaza shops. They're this vibrant, absolutely essential part of daily life. But what if I told you that behind those familiar storefronts, there's a much darker story unfolding? One that's all about hidden costs, human suffering, and a system that, get this, actually rewards people for breaking the rules.
It seems like a simple question, right? But the answer, well, it's incredibly complex. Because the price you see on the tag, that's one thing. The true cost is something else entirely. So let's do this. Let's peel back the layers and really find out what that cost is.
All right, so first up, let's start with what we all think we know, the familiar view. On the surface, these shops aren't just a convenience. For millions of people, they are an absolute lifeline.
And just in case you're not familiar with the term, a Spaza shop is basically an informal corner store. The word itself kind of hints at their nature. They just pop up wherever they're needed. And they provide this crucial access to daily goods, making them a real cornerstone of the township economy.
And they really are. This is the place you go to grab what you need without having to make a long trip. It's where neighbors meet and catch up. It's a picture of community and convenience. But as we're about to see, it's really just a picture.
Because once you look behind that counter, a completely different reality emerges. And trust me, the numbers that define this reality, they are absolutely staggering.
Just try to imagine this for a second, working more than 15 hours a day. And I'm not talking about, once in a while to meet a deadline. I mean every single day. For so many workers in these shops, that's the norm.
So when do they get a break? A day off? They don't. We're talking about 0 days off. 7 days a week, week after week. It is just this relentless, brutal cycle with no escape.
And what do they get paid for all that work? You're not going to believe this. Some workers report earning as little as 400 Rand a month. To put that in perspective, that's around 27 US dollars for an entire month of 15-hour days. It's just almost impossible to wrap your head around.
Now, this is where it gets even more sinister. It's about how the system is designed to trap people. It's not just about the criminally low wages. See, many of these workers, who are often foreign nationals, they start off in debt to their employers just for the cost of travel. Then their passports are confiscated, their wages are frequently withheld, and they're forced to live and sleep inside the very shop where they work. This goes way beyond just poor working conditions. This is a blatant violation of South African labor laws. Frankly, it looks a whole lot like modern slavery.
So you have to ask, right? Why does this happen? How can this level of exploitation exist right there in plain sight? Well, a big part of the answer lies in a really toxic climate of fear and social pressure.
This quote from the research, it really gets right to the heart of the matter. There's this powerful and, frankly, dangerous narrative that takes hold, blaming foreign workers for all the local economic problems. This kind of scapegoating just makes an already vulnerable group of people even more susceptible to this kind of abuse.
And here's what happens as a result. All that public anger gets misdirected. So while communities are sort of encouraged to blame the workers, the real issue, which is business owners deliberately breaking the law for profit, that just goes completely unchallenged. It's a perfect distraction, isn't it?
And, this is where the story takes yet another dark turn. Because this system of exploitation, it doesn't just stay behind the counter. Oh no, it spills out and ends up affecting the very customers these shops are supposed to be serving. Think about it. When you start cutting corners on labor, you inevitably start cutting corners on safety. It's a direct line. And in this case, it leads directly to a massive public health crisis.
And this isn't just some theoretical risk. Tragically, children have actually died after eating snacks they bought from Spaza shops. These horrifying events have sounded a massive alarm, revealing these catastrophic failures in food safety that simply cannot be ignored any longer.
And the risks are just awful. We're talking about food being stored at completely the wrong temperature, rampant infestations of rats and insects, cleaning chemicals leaking onto food products, and just a general, shocking lack of basic hygiene. Let's be real. An exhausted, trapped worker is in no position to enforce safety standards. So, what's at the very core of all of this? What's the root cause? It really just boils down to one central idea, a deliberate choice to operate outside the law.
And this is the absolute key takeaway right here. The term is informality by choice. This is not about some tiny, struggling vendor who's just trying to survive day to day. No, this is about established businesses that could comply with things like minimum wage, safety standards, and taxes, but they choose not to. Why? Because it's just way more profitable.
This comparison really makes it crystal clear. What a lot of people assume is that we're talking about the survivalist, someone who's just trying to feed their family. But the reality in so many of these exploitative cases is the business on the right, an operation that is built on actively and illegally undercutting any and all competition.
And you can see how this creates a truly vicious cycle, right? When one business thrives by breaking all the rules, it puts this immense pressure on the legitimate businesses. Suddenly, to compete, they might feel like they're forced to cut corners too. And that leads to this terrible race to the bottom, where exploitation just becomes the norm.
So, this leaves us with a final and really critical question. The convenience of the Spaza shop, it's undeniable. But when its entire business model depends on this hidden system of exploitation and public risk, a system that actually rewards the rule breakers, what is the true cost? And maybe more importantly, who is it that ultimately is paying that price?